Welcome to the Team SNG deck profile. Today we're going to be doing the Signer Dragon profile. Now I'm not entirely sure what I was going to call this. I went with Signer Dragons because it utilizes Stardust Dragon, utilizes Red Dragon Archfiend, but at the same time it also does utilize the TG engine, which I know he wasn't a signer, but like, meh. I figured it fits in. While I've got your attention, make sure you guys leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. And check out the team's Facebook page. Link to that will be down in the description below. Also, later in the week, there should be the test hands video for this deck profile coming out. Link to that will be in the description below as soon as that video goes live. Now, the way this deck works is it's basically Junk Speeder Turbo. The whole goal is to get into Junk Speeder, use Junk Speeder's ability to flood the board with Synchron monsters, and then use the Synchron monsters to climb into the big boss monsters, such as Shooting Quasar and Red Nova. However, the deck does have a way to go into a TG sort of engine to get to maybe Stardust Warrior, and things like that on your opponent's turn. I don't really know what else to say about this deck, so let's just show it to you. As always, let's just start with the monsters. Alright, first monster we run, 2 copies of Cyburst Synchron. Right, I know this doesn't really fit in with the 5Ds era theme we're going for, but Cyburst Synchron is a really good card. He can also be summoned off of Junk Speeder, and his ability to manipulate levels on the field can be extremely useful, because it makes it so that you can effectively have 2 level 2 monsters, letting him go into Junk Speeder with only 1 monster on the field other than him. Also, he protects your big monster that you're going to put in the extra monster zone, so that it won't be destroyed by card effect or battle. You can banish this and protect that, which can be really valuable if you go into something like Red Nova Dragon, who can't be destroyed by card effect. If your opponent does try to destroy it by battle, this will protect it. And that's why this card's in here too. Also, it's acting as our level 1 Synchron, because Jet Synchron will likely be banned on the next ban list. There's my ban list prediction, guys. That's it. That's all you get. Next, we run 2 of the level 2 Fleur Synchron. Fleur Synchron is great in this deck. When she's used as a synchro material, you get to special summon a level 2 or lower monster from your hand. This is not once per turn, and it's not limited to her. So, if you end up summoning this off Junk Speeder and you have the other one in your hand, when you synchro summon, using her as material, you can summon the other one of her from your hand, and then you can synchro summon with the second one, and you can summon something else from your hand as well. So, she can really help you build a board presence, and she can help you cycle cards out of your hand onto the field to act as material. Next we run one of the most important Synchron tuners in this deck, and that is 3 copies of Junk Synchron. Junk Synchron, normal summon it, special summon a level 2 from the graveyard, combo off that way. It will also get you into Junk Speeder if you special summon that level 2 out of the grave. And there are plenty of level 2s, as you'll see in a bit, that we can special summon with him. We do run one other level 3 Synchron, and that is Drill Synchron. We're only using this because, realistically, if we've used Junk Synchron to get to Junk Speeder, we don't want to be bringing out another copy of Junk Synchron, because we want to keep him in the deck so we can potentially use him again later. So, Drill Synchron is likely going to be what we try and summon with Junk Speeder, so that we don't burn 2 Junk Synchrons getting into our full combo. And the final Synchron tuner that we run is Road Synchron. The reason is, this counts as a level 2 tuner when used for anything other than Road Warrior. So, this effectively lets us summon 2 level 2s with Junk Speeder rather than 1. And I've found that level 2 tuners tend to be quite a good card for us to have, especially going into the Red Nova Dragon play. So that's why we run Road Synchron. Now for some Synchron support that we run. First we run 3 copies of Synchron Carrier. Synchron Carrier, if it's on the field, you get to normal summon a Synchron from your hand in addition to your original normal summon. Also, if it remains on the field when you make a synchro summon, you get to produce a level 2 token, which can then be used to continue synchro summoning, allowing us to build up some serious board presence that way. The other Synchron support that we run is 2 copies of Synchron Explorer. Synchron Explorer lets us special summon a Synchron monster from our graveyard. So if we've ended up in a situation where maybe we've got Synchron Carrier or any of our Synchrons in the grave, we can actually just special summon them back with Synchron Explorer when it's normal summon. So Synchron Explorer is a really good card for us in the sense that it does allow us to sort of enable combos later in the game. Next we run one of the best searchers this deck has, and that is Junk Converter. When you run 3 copies of him, what you do is you pitch him and a tuner to search out a Synchron monster. Now that can be Synchron Carrier, Synchron Explorer, or any of our Synchron monsters. Meaning that if we say got Junk Synchron in hand, then we'll use this to search for something like Synchron Carrier so that we have extra bodies on board. It's also a level 2 monster, which means that when Junk Synchron's normal summoned, you can special summon this back. On top of all of that, when this is used as Synchro material, you get to special summon from the grave a tuner monster. Now, it doesn't have to be a Synchron tuner. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It is just a tuner monster. Level, whatever, it's all fine. You can special summon it back. So Junk Converter does allow us to sort of put additional tuners on board on top of what Junk Speeder's already going to put on board for us to play with, allowing us to effectively combo a little deeper into our extra deck. That does it for the Synchron engine, Synchron support. I know Junk Converter is technically neither, but it is realistically a Synchron support card. So we're now going to talk about the other engine we're running in this deck, which doesn't necessarily go with Synchrons, especially not in an anime sense. That is TGs. First TG that we are running is TG Booster Raptor. We run 2 copies of him. He can special summon himself from the hand if there's a TG on the field. That's really the only reason we run him. He lets us see TG stuff. Next we run TG Stryker. This is the most popular TG tuner. Basically, he's a bit like Cyber Dragon. If our opponent controls monsters and we don't, we can special summon him from the hand. Level 2 tuner, always useful in this deck. Next, 2 copies of TG Warwolf. TG Warwolf, if a monster special summon this. Again, more bodies on board, more stuff for us to play with, letting us extend further, maybe even get into Quasar plays. And the final TG that we run is TG Screw Serpent. Screw Serpent's an interesting card. He lets us special summon a TG back from the grave, and when he's in the grave, we can banish him to manipulate the levels of the TG monsters on the field, potentially allowing us to move into plays that we wouldn't normally have access to. That does it for the TG lineup. I know I shot through that. It's mostly because this lineup's not super important in this deck. It can help us when we have awkward and bricky hands. It helps us get out of those, and you'll see what I mean by that when we look at the test hands later in the week, or if you're catching this later on, go check out those test hands, link in the description below. But you will definitely see what I mean by the TGs help us get out of some awkward hands. So next, we're going to talk about some generic Synchro type support that we run. First, which is 3 copies of Junk Forward. If you control no monsters, special summon this. Boom. That also lets us special summon TG Warwolf from our hand. So if we've got Warwolf and Junk Forward, hey, there we go. We get 2 bodies on board, both of which are level 3. Let's just play off with some of our other cards in our deck. Like all those level 2 turners. Next, the typical level 2 that every Synchro deck will run, Duel Warrior. If this card's on the field and it's used as Synchro material, you produce 2 level 1 tokens. They can be used for separate Synchro monsters or the same one. It really is up to you. But they basically will allow you to put multiple non-tuners on the board, which we can then utilize with our Synchron monsters. Alright, and then we do run the righty driver and the lefty driver package. We run 3 righties and 2 lefties. If you don't know what it does, righty, when it's normal summon, searches out. Special summons lefty. Lefty, when it's special summoned, lets us treat it as a level 3 monster. Also, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish this to search out righty, so you can continually cycle the 2 of them. The thing is that you can't use lefty's search effect on the turn it is sent to the grave. Alright, and that does it for the monsters. On to the spells. The monster package is really large, so we don't run very many spells or traps in this deck, but we do run some important ones. Now, with my prediction that Jet Synchron is going to get hit, I don't think that they will hit tuning. So, we only run 2 copies of tuning. There's enough ways for us to search our Synchron monsters. We don't really need to have tuning. But with running 3 junk converters, which can search out any Synchron monster, tuning, which can only search out a Synchron tuner, is a little subpar compared to him. So we run 2, but that's really all we need. Next we run 1 copy of Rhoda and 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial helps us set up the grave. Say we have Foolish Burial and Junk Synchron in our hand, we can activate Foolish Burial, send something to the graveyard that a level 2 non-tuner, normal summon our Junk Synchron, special summon back level 2 non-tuner and combo off that way. Rhoda lets us search for any of our warriors. Junk Converter, by the way, he's a warrior, so letting us search into him can also be really good, but we can also just search any of our Synchron tuners that we might need, such as Junk, or if we're in a bit of a weird bind, we might search for Road Synchron, but that's not very likely. More often than not, we're going to just be searching for Junk Forward, Junk Converter, or Junk Synchron. Typically, those are going to be the sort of things that you're probably going to search with your Rhoda. Next, we do run 3 copies of Potted Desires. We run a lot of 3-ofs in the deck, so we're not too concerned we're going to banish off all the copies of one thing. So Potted Desires is quite a safe card for us to use. And, you know, who doesn't like getting 2 extra cards in their hand? That does it for our spells. Let's talk about our traps. Our trap lineup is even smaller than our spell lineup. Our trap lineup is 1 card. Now, we run 3 copies of it, but it's 1 card. And that card is Red Rain. Red Rain, if you control a level 8 or higher Synchro monster, banish all other cards on the field. That is a blanket banish. That is a board wipe, except for the highest level monster. So it will wipe out Lynx, it will wipe out Xyz, it will wipe out everything. The only monster that is safe is the monster with the highest level. This deck turbos out 2 level 12 boss monsters. Who do you think's got the highest level monster on the field? This card has a secondary effect, which is if it's in the graveyard, when a Dark Dragon Synchro monster is special summoned, add this card to your hand. So it does recycle itself, which is really good, but honestly, its banish everything effect is why we are running it. It gets rid of all the monsters our opponent puts on the board, it stops them from being able to build anything too big, and our monster's safe and immune from its effects. So that's why we run 3 copies of that. That does it for the main deck. Let's talk about that extra deck. So, you've heard about him, you've seen him, here he is. 2 copies of Junk Speeder. The reason we run 2, this deck doesn't have a great second turn. It can build a board, it can build a big monster, the monster can be tough to deal with, but if our opponent does break our board, it doesn't have a fantastic second turn. Junk Speeder gives us the ability to potentially have a second turn. Theoretically, you will have used up a lot of your Synchron tuners doing it the first time, but if you end up in a situation where you need to, you can always do it a second time to try and at least build something to give yourself a fighting chance. And there are definitely some plays you can do with it. So that's why I run 2 copies. Also, if you special summon Drill Synchron with his effect, you can use him to run into a defense position monster. He doubles his attack on the turn he's Synchro summoned, and with Drill Synchron on the field, he will deal piercing damage. So you can use that to get rid of something on your opponent's side of the field before climbing if you think that's the way to go. Next, we run Hauki Fibrax. Just a good card. Our lefty and righty driver utilize going into him to allow us to actually go into TG Trident Launcher. Basically, Hack 5X will summon a tuner out of our deck. In this case, it's going to likely be TG Stryker. TG Stryker and Hack 5X can then make Trident Launcher. Trident Launcher will let you special summon a TG monster, say TG Stryker, from the grave, a TG monster from the hand, and a TG monster from the deck, which will allow you to put multiple bodies on the board, which you can then utilize any way you need to get to yourself to 2 level 5s. Now, you are tied into only TG monsters, so we run a couple TG monsters, but the whole goal is actually to get into a level 10 Stardust monster. The TG monsters we run are TG Star Guardian and TG Hyper Librarian. Star Guardian is a synchro tuner who can add a TG monster from the grave to the hand, and then it lets you special summon a TG monster from the hand to the field. So you can use TG Star Guardian to recur something that maybe went into making him, allowing you to also then make TG Hyper Librarian. Hyper Librarian, every time a monster is synchro summoned, draw a card. TG Star Guardian can also be used to synchro summon on your opponent's main phase. So what you're typically going to do is you're going to use TG Star Guardian and you're going to use TG Hyper Librarian on your opponent's turn to go into your play. We do run one other Synchron tuner, and that is Excel Synchron. Everyone would love me to run Formula Synchron. I can see the comments now. Go ahead and leave them. I like Formula Synchron. Drawing cards is nice. Don't always need a level 2. There are times where you need other levels. Excel Synchron's level manipulation is why I run him. But the other thought behind having him is he's a level 5, which this deck makes really well. And so being able to make level 5s, this deck's pretty much specifically been designed to make level 5 synchro monsters, because our goal is to get to Junk Speeder. Being able to make Excel Synchron is easier for this deck than to make Formula Synchron, especially if we don't want to sit out on the board with Haka 5X and next to nothing else. So we run Excel Synchron instead of Formula. Now, we're going to talk about the 2 dragons that you all came here to see. First dragon we're going to talk about is Stardust Dragon. Everyone loves him. He's Yusei's monster. He's the boss monster of the protagonist of the most popular Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows in history. He's a level 8. He can negate destruction effects. He returns himself to the field. Now, the level 10 that we alluded to with the TGs is Stardust Warrior. Basically, you can tribute this card on your side of the field to negate a summon. That's a special summon, mind you, but you can still negate it. And if you can negate a special summon in a key situation, you are likely to put yourself in the boat where your opponent can't necessarily combo off and get into their boss monsters. So, that's why we run Stardust Warrior. The next monster we run, Shooting Star Dragon. Multiple attacks, sounds good, right? Negation of a destruction effect, sounds pretty good too. Negation of an attack, also sounds really good. This guy does all 3. He's not super easy to get into. He requires very specific materials, 1 tuner, synchro monster, and Stardust Dragon. So, really specific materials. Not super easy to get into. But you can get into it by having Shooting Quasar Dragon float. If Shooting Quasar Dragon is removed from the field or destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon Shooting Star Dragon to your side of the field. So this effect's really useful. It does let us negate something on our opponent's side of the field. It's basically an omni-negate, but it also lets you get into your Shooting Star Dragon via him. So, that's part of the reason we run Shooting Star Dragon. That does it for the Stardust engine that we run. Next, let's talk about the Red Dragon Archfiends that we run. We run 4 of these guys, first of which, the original Red Dragon Archfiend. I love Red Dragon Archfiend. It was my first ever Synchron card. So, yeah, that's why I run him more than anything. You could run Hot Red, however, Hot Red does not let us get into Red Nova, whereas Red Dragon Archfiend does. So, I run him as our basic level 8 climbing type of monster. Next, we run Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. If it was to inflict battle damage to your opponent, you get to special summon a tuner from the grave. So that can be really useful to help you climb into the next monster on this list, which is Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Now, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane lets you tribute a monster from your side of the field and special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from the graveyard. Now, that can be Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, or it can be Red Dragon Archfiend the base level 8 dragon monster. He also has an effect similar to Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss's effect, where if he inflicts battle damage, he gets to special summon 2 tuners that have the same level, one from the grave and one from the deck. So he could potentially let you get into more tuners, which you could then use to combo off and do more stuff with. Finally, the big boss monster that we try to rush ourselves into in the Red Dragon Archfiend tree, Red Nova Dragon. Hot Red Dragon King Calamity is really good. I'm not trying to disparage that fact. However, I love Red Nova Dragon. It gets extremely large. It gains 500 attack for every tuner in the graveyard. It can negate an attack, and it can't be destroyed by card effects, meaning your opponent's got to find a way to get over this by battle, or they're going to have to get over this in some other way. So at the end of the day, I love this card in this deck, and it is a fantastic boss monster for the deck. That does it for the extra deck, but before we move on, I do have to ask you guys a question. Does anyone else think that Hanukkah 5-Rex gets a little bit older and turns into Junk Speeder, who then gets a little bit older and finds himself as the Stardust Warrior? Take a look at their artwork. Let me know what you guys think. Personally, I feel like these 3 are just evolutions of the same monster. Alright, so what I love about this deck the most is its ability to utilize 2 rival boss monsters, but also utilize multiple engines to get to them. The ability to use Junk Synchron and Junk Converter to go into effectively a very minor kind of combo piece in this deck in Junk Speeder does let us extend to the point where we are seeing boss monsters of all natures and all power strengths on the field every duel. And the consistency that cards like Tuning and Junk Converter bring to the deck makes it a very consistent deck that can regularly get into its combos. Whether it is going into Stardust Dragon and turboing out Quasar, or it's going into Red Dragon Archfiend and turboing out Nova, this deck does have the potential to catch anybody off guard. Now, it is quite fragile, and you do often end up with a single boss monster on board and not much else. That's why cards like Red Rain that protect them is extremely valuable in this deck, and they can definitely do that. So, I love this deck. I think it's a really interesting deck. It does, as I say, utilize rival boss monsters, but it does it in a way that feels almost natural. So that's really all I have to say about this deck. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the Facebook page, as I say, link in the description down below. And keep your eye on the channel for the test hands for this deck. They will be coming out later this week. And with that, all I can say is I'll see you guys at the next video.